Hey everybody, welcome. It's Ty Hicks. Today what I want to address with you guys is the source of anxiety attacks and then how you can get yourself out of any anxiety attack whenever they emerge. So first of all, we have to really understand what the core components of anxiety are, because a lot of people are confused about why they're experiencing, this emotional experience of anxiety. And the good news is it is reversible, of course. So first of all, what's interesting about anxiety is it emerges in that really critical moment when at one point you were feeling stressed about something that was happening in your environment or about a thought that you had, and all of a sudden you recognize that you are stressed about it. And then what happens is you become stressed about the fact that you are stressed. And then what happens is you become stressed about the fact that you're stressed that you're stressed. And then now all of a sudden you're in what I call the death spiral of anxiety, where you've lost control and you're spinning down towards rock bottom, which is going to eventually be, whether it's hyperventilating or some sort of panic attack. For some people it's a heart attack. And then very often for a lot of people it means, they just have to do something to get themselves out of that mental and emotional state. So they go, pick up a bottle of alcohol or go smoke some weed or do some or other sort of thing, because they just simply can't stay in that downward spiral state of anxiety any longer. Now, what I like to equate this to is, it's kind of like a metaphor. Imagine if you're driving on an icy road, and imagine that you start to spin out of control. Well, if you start to spin out of control on an icy road and there's trees lining the road and you find yourself heading towards a tree, where do you think your attention is going to go? Your attention is going to go directly to the tree that you do not want to hit. And because your attention is on it, because that is where your mind is centered, because that's where your focus is at, you really, quite literally, have no choice but to drive yourself directly into the tree, even if that's not where you really want to go. They've actually done studies on this with race car drivers, where they take them out on a track, they purposefully cause them to skid out, and then they monitor whether or not they hit the wall or not. And they've identified the fact that if you are staring at the wall that you don't want to hit, you are almost perfectly guaranteed to hit that wall every single time. But if you can train yourself, even if you're afraid of hitting the wall, and you know the wall is there, if you can instead train yourself to look in a different direction, which is where it is that you actually want to go, then all of a sudden what happens is your mind and your body and everything becomes aligned in a sense where you can actually navigate yourself to where it is that you want to go. So what happens in an anxiety attack is, let's say, you are worried about your next day of work. So you contemplate going to work, and in your head you're either visualizing it or you're imagining what it's going to feel like to go to work the next day. And you're imagining the worst case scenario. Or you're imagining that horrible thing that your boss may say to you that you don't want to hear. And the problem is when you focus on that and you get that image in your head and you stay super focused on it and you keep focusing on it and you keep thinking about it and you keep dwelling about it, then all of a sudden you're in that downward spiral. Because you continuously focus on it, you're headed right towards that tree, and that's exactly what you end up hitting. Now, the reason why this becomes a very painful experience for people is because anxiety is not necessarily something you're choosing at a conscious level. The patterns of focus that you have that are causing you to experience anxiety are habituated, and they're happening at a subconscious level. To put that in different words, your mind has become habituated to focus on particular things in your environment based off what it deems to be most important. And so if you think of, kind of how our brains and our nervous system has adapted evolutionarily, what we know intuitively is that the human brain has survived over time and become such a powerful tool for our survival because it is able to identify things in our environment that may be wrong or that may be dangerous to us. And it automatically causes us to give a higher priority to focusing on those things that may cause danger to us. And so your reptile brain is always on the lookout for things that may go wrong. And when that part of your brain becomes too hyperactive, and when you develop too many deeply ingrained patterns of habituated patterns of focus, that habitually focus you on things that cause you to feel anxiety, then now you've got a recipe for perpetually dealing with anxiety every single day of the week. So you have to be able to interrupt those patterns of focus and replace them. You have to be able to literally recondition your nervous system so that instead of focusing on the things that are going wrong, you could start focusing on the things that are going right, the things that could make you feel joyful, happy, peaceful, serene, confident, determined, all of the things that you'd actually want to feel. So first of all, you got to understand, yes, anxiety sucks. It's painful. It's a very difficult thing to be in. It's not necessarily something you're choosing, but that doesn't mean that it's not something you cannot learn to control consciously and naturally. And that's exactly, obviously, what we teach, you know. So it's something that can actually be turned around. So what's the real bottom line to get out of an anxiety attack? You got to control what you're focusing on. Now, that's a little bit easier said than done when you're in the middle of a perpetual state of anxiety every single day. You really probably need more of a subconscious intervention, and so you may need a little bit of extra help with that. So if that's something you want some help with, by all means, reach out to us at any time. We're happy to do so. You know, it's difficult to really turn this thing around on your own, but it's easy once you actually know the very simple strategies that will help you actually make it happen. So until you really take control of the habituated patterns of focus, it's just not going to happen for you. But once you learn how to do that, you're never going to feel out of control ever again. So I'm curious, you know, drop a comment. You know, have you dealt with anxiety in the past? Are you dealing with it now? Do you have anxiety attacks? How has this concept served you? And we'd love to be able to be in touch and offer any pointers we can to help you along the way. So awesome. Look forward to reading your comments. I'll talk to you again soon.